Welcome to the Filmcast review of Eddington, the new Ari Aster movie. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. In May of 2020, a standoff between a small-town sheriff and mayor sparks a powder keg. As neighbor is pitted against neighbor in Eddington, New Mexico. You know, Jeff Kanata, I think I'm going to open with you this week.
Oh, okay.
Let's start with you,
right.
Because I have a feeling I know which direction these reviews are going to go in, and so I think opening with you is the best move here. What did you think of Eddington?
Well, Dave, guess you could say what I thought of Eddington is best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Well, let's hear it, Jeff.
I'm going to tell you, I wrote an entire other limerick that I decided not to use.
Oh, wow.
Because I asked my wife and she said, do not do that one. And I said, okay, I will be writing a different lyric.
Could that be an After Dark exclusive?
I don't think it's wise.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Shocking.
All right. So here's the limerick.
Okay.
When the cold civil war is full blown, more connected we feel, more alone. This movie that thrills as it highlights our ills knows the villain's the cellular phone.
All right.
I think this movie is brilliant. I'm close to calling it a masterpiece. I know that view is not shared. And I want to reiterate, I love you guys. And I don't.
And Jeff, we love you too. I want to start this review by saying, regardless of what is spoken in this review, we're friends, we're co-hosts,
yes,
and that will stay the same no matter what is said during the review. Okay, all right, go ahead.
We'll see.
We're in a safe space here.
Okay, much of this movie I was deeply uncomfortable with, but I think that's a strength of the movie. I think this is really bold filmmaking in that it is a filmmaker walking off a cliff. It is a filmmaker like walking into the fray and sort of not regurgitating any particular person's viewpoint, but sort of showing a slice of the world as it I think was in 2020 and elements persist. And I do think that what I love most about this movie is that the villain is the internet. The villain is the phone. The villain is information. And it takes this very small town in New Mexico, and it shows that the access to information and the sort of desire to be a participant in the larger things that are happening that we're all bombarded with is the problem. Like this notion that everything that's happening is happening to everyone is I think writ large here, and everyone feels the need to have their opinions expressed and their position taken into account, and their participation is required, right? And it is I think very interesting. It's the way the world has changed because we all have all the information all the time. And I think the performances in this are extraordinary. I think Joaquin Phoenix, he's like one of very few actors that I think could have done this in this way. He brings such a vulnerability, and he just plays characters that are always getting in their own way in really interesting ways. Characters that are just so flawed and so his own mannerisms are a problem for him, and he's made a career out of playing those characters, and he does it just so well here. And I've not been a huge Ari Aster fan. I think of the three of us, I liked Beau is Afraid the least. And you know what, guys? Yeah. This movie, Eddington, makes me like Beau is Afraid more.
Wow.
That's how much it impressed me. I think this is an extraordinary movie. And it goes places that I did not see coming. It has, like, just structurally, obviously the setting is a big deal, and it's going to be most of what we talk about, and deservedly so. But I think structurally, as like a thriller, as a movie that has a plot, and that isn't just about setting, I think it is masterfully crafted. There are setups that I did not see as setups that pay off, and you go, "Oh, I didn't." It is so like textbook setup payoff, but because of how he places the setup, it doesn't seem like a setup. It just seems like more flavor for our world, and then you realize, "Oh my God, that pays off in this really brilliant, unexpected way." I think it is, as something that is about the year 2020, it really, I think, will be a movie that lives forever. I think it is a movie that, for all its flaws and all its sort of, I understand why people will object to it sort of not taking sides, or kind of, you know, blasting all sides equally in a certain respect. And as I said, I was deeply uncomfortable with so much of what happens in this movie. But I think what great art does oftentimes is to challenge the viewer's perspective and assumptions and positions. And I think this movie does that. I think it really, for me, it challenged me to think about, how what I brought into the conversation, what I bring to the table in viewing it. And I was uncomfortable. I was watching this in a movie theater full of people, and there were laughs at things that I felt that were deeply unfunny, but people were cackling about. And then I was laughing at things that other people weren't laughing at. I think this is a sort of cultural touchstone, and to have a filmmaker do this in what I would perceive, and I think you guys probably disagree, but what I perceive to be a very not clumsy way to do it, in a very sort of, expert manner, to present this view of this place in this time with all of its messy stuff, and just put the viewer in the center of it and make them feel uncomfortable and make them think about it. And then also, like, have this incredible plot that emerges through all that too. I was blown away by this movie, and I think it's an important watch, frankly. I do. I know you guys disagree, but I'll shut up.
Beautifully said, Jeff. I just want to say, by the way, I have I posted my thoughts on Eddington online, and I think I've gotten dragged for those thoughts more than any other film I have talked about this year. Like, the Ari Aster fans really can. So essentially, like, I've already gone through a whole, like, emotional like
you should be like, no guys, I like Beau is Afraid. Don't
Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid. I'm the only person here that put Beau is Afraid in my top 10 movies of that year.
Oh yeah, right? I actively disliked that movie.
So I loved Beau is Afraid. I thought it was great, and so I'm an Ari Aster sometimes defender, and so I've already gone through a whole kind of, like, sitting in my thoughts on this movie and turning it, like, essentially, like, a lot of the emotion is gone for me now.
I can't. What you're saying is I can no longer hurt you.
You can no longer hurt me. A lot of it's already come out.
That's
is
right.
what I'm trying to say. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I will share those momentarily. Devindra, I want to hear what you have to say about Eddington.
Perhaps the word I would use for Eddington is tepid. Because it actually does perfectly describe my feelings about this movie. Like, I think it's well made. Ari Aster knows how to make a decent thriller. I can watch Joaquin Phoenix being a weird little guy forever. But again, Dave, like you were saying, this would be a challenging review, and I think a lot of people are saying this movie's really divisive. And I'm just kind of not seeing that, because I don't think this movie actually comes down with the strong point of view is the thing. Like, it takes a wild swing towards the end, which I think is interesting, and maybe we should have been sitting in that mode a little more. But for the most part, it kind of feels like Ari Aster was stuck at home in 2020 as he wrote this script and was taking a lot of notes about everything going on there. And in many ways, it feels like a rehash of what was going on. And certainly the idea that our phones are sort of warping us into our own realities. That's kind of interesting, but also that's not a new concept. It's not anything unknown right now. We kind of know like how bad it is now. It sucks that we're all basically wandering around in our own information bubbles, in our own senses of reality. So I didn't feel like any of that was particularly insightful. At the end of the day, this is a movie that, presents maybe negatives and pros and cons, like on both sides of the aisle. I wouldn't say it's a truly both sidesy movie because you can kind of see things go real bad with one side in particular. And I think the movie is really interesting when it takes a swing into sort of a fantastical. I did not like Beau was Afraid much, but to echo what you often say, Dave, at least that movie had an ethos. At least that movie it felt like it was trying to say something and it was doing it in a wild stylistic way, and Ari Aster did not care if you like fully comprehended it. And I think this one is just like pretty kind of basic in terms of what we're getting here. Maybe I've been reading too much news. Maybe I've been too on tap with this stuff as somebody who has to write about news and cover social media and technology and everything. It just didn't feel that new. It feels like some bits feel like member berries of just like being there in 2020 again. Like, oh, that was weird. Yeah, when we were all forced to wear masks and some people would be jerks about it. I wish this movie was more divisive. I wish it took bigger swings, honestly, because at the end of the day, I don't have any strong emotion to it because what this movie is saying doesn't feel particularly fresh or new. And I also have issues with like, there are a handful of people of color in this movie. I kind of have some issues with how they're treated and how they're sometimes used as props, at least in this particular plot. Like, I was not a huge fan of. Yeah, I think this movie is just fine, but tedious is another word I'd use. I feel like we spend a lot of time in uninteresting parts or like basically revisiting the past before the movie gets to be more interesting, gets to start doing things. The other thing I'd say, it feels like almost Coen Brothers light. I would say. I think about like satires. I just recently rewatched Burn After Reading to talk about it on another podcast, and that movie is such a perfect lens into like the insanity of the like post-Iraq mid 2000s. But the tone was off, and people didn't fully vibe with the comedy. But that movie wasn't very long, and it was a very interesting specific lens that rang true to me. And I think this movie does this, Eddington rings true, sure, but it also feels like you're just repeating the facts to me of like a lot of things that happen. It doesn't have the lyricism of a Coen Brothers satire. And for being 2.5 hours long, I don't know. I take offense at that.
Okay. Why don't I start with some things I liked about the movie?
Okay.
I thought Joaquin Phoenix was great. Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix was awesome in the movie. I think the movie looks awesome. It just is Ari Aster knows how to shoot a beautiful film, and this is one of them. I also appreciated, and I think the movie is very long, but I appreciated that the movie is constantly kind of changing what the dynamic is in the movie, right? Like every
for sure.
15 to 20 minutes, it's like, oh, here's a whole other set of issues that we are now
it's about
with.
his marriage.
Right. Now it's about this. Now it's about this. Right. And it's like, I like how that kept me off kilter. Right. Having said that, I did really deeply hate this film. And I think I need to start by saying I do think I understand what the film is trying to say. Like a lot of people, when I blasted the movie, they're like, "Oh, well, you just don't get it. You just don't get the movie." And it's like, okay, is it possible to get the movie and still hate it? Like that's a question for you, right? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Because if so, I fall into that category. And okay, here's the film is trying to say a few things. I think, right? Number one, Jeff Kanata beautifully articulated as usual about the divisiveness of technology, of social media, right? Of like, here is what this thing has done to us, is like it's turned people against each other. People want to take part in this story where we're like, social media and being online is a daily game where people attack each other, they dunk on each other, they try to annihilate each other, and the people who do it really well win. They actually get material benefits from it, right? They fame and fortune from it, and these incentives have set it up so that like everyone wants to get in on it, and like it warps your incentives, it warps your personality, it warps your actions. And I do think that is something that we see in the movie, and that the movie does a decent job of trying to like explain. Another thing that I think the movie is trying to do, I think it was Matt Goldberg that wrote about this in his newsletter commentary track, was how all politics is in some way a reflection of the person, right? Like that every political act in this movie, it's not like, oh, I have some deep and deep-seated interest in bettering the world and humanity. It's always about some personal grievance or some kind of relationship dynamic or something like that causes them to like engage in politics in this way. And I think that is potentially like a very insightful notion about how a lot of people engage in politics in our world, not just in Eddington, New Mexico, which by the way is a fictional place. So I think I understand, like, these are some of the points that the movie is trying to make. Honestly, this reminds me a little bit of our conversation about Warfare, right? Where it's like, I thought Warfare was a very well-made movie, right? Like, I have no issue with how well-made the movie was. And I think my question about Warfare is, does it offer us a useful perspective? Does it offer us a useful perspective for, A, understanding what that time period was? And B, is it useful for today, given the battles that we have before us right now, right? The actual forces we are fighting against to make the world a better place right now.
Yeah, it's hard to make a satire of 2020 when our reality right now is so much more insane than even what's depicted in this movie.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And ultimately, like, that's where I come down on this movie, not only being not useful but potentially harmful, right? Something that Jeff said a long time ago really like still resonates with me. I think we were reviewing the Kevin Williamson movie Sick, right? Was it the movie Sick? Yeah.
So I hate that movie.
Yeah, we did not like that movie at all.
Yeah.
But Jeff said something that has stuck with me. It's like, you said, what's really sad is that the overarching narrative that I think people have of the COVID era was, boy, was it dumb that we wore those masks, right? Like, that's kind of, whether or not that's accurate. Like, I think a lot of like the main pop culture narrative is, boy, that was silly that we did that, huh? Boy, that was silly. Yeah. And this movie definitely perpetuates that. Now, I want to make clear, as Jeff indicated, it goes after everyone. It doesn't just go after the people who like used mask mandates to enforce their own sense of superiority on other people. It goes after everyone. I get that. But Joaquin Phoenix is the only character in the movie that gets any interiority whatsoever, right? Like, he's the only character. And by the way, reading interviews, it does feel like Ari Aster wants us to relate with that character the most.
Sure. I will say on that point in particular, he does give Pedro Pascal a very cogent, rational retort, specifically on the mask issue, and does it calmly, dispassionately, without, the movie allows that moment of like, listen, this is the smartest thing to do. Like, and so I do think that on that one very particular point, I saw in it an even-handedness. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds about all this stuff, but like, one of the things that's very hard for me personally with regard to that time is that I sort of have to acknowledge that both things were true, which is A, it was the smartest thing to be doing at the time, and B, it didn't really matter. Like, both of those things.
What do you mean by it didn't really matter?
What didn't really matter?
Like, everyone got it anyway. It's like we
delayed a lot of it. Like that's part of it. Yeah.
like the points. Let's just keep to the movie. Like I said, I don't want to relive
Yeah, let's keep to the movie. And by the way, I disagree with what you said just now, which is like I don't. I think what you're indicating is that the movie allows Pedro Pascal to attempt to defend the wearing of masks in a cogent way. Is that's what I understand what you're saying, right?
I believe that is to be the case.
I think that every single one of Pedro Pascal's actions in the film, right from the beginning, are framed in a negative way. Including what you just said, including that part where he's like explaining why masks are important. He is framed in a way that is self-serving, and
but so everyone is.
I understand that, but I'm just disputing the point you just made, which is like you're saying like, oh, he was allowed to defend himself. His way of defending himself was not, in my opinion, like I don't think the audience saw that was like, oh yeah, of course, what he's saying makes sense.
Here's what I think is what is so difficult about this movie and what I respect so much about this movie is that it does not reinforce anyone's position. This movie does not, in my opinion, and my perspective on it, is it doesn't view its job as presenting a solution or presenting or reinforcing any position. It is, I listened to the A24 podcast with Bill Hader and Ari Aster on this movie.
Good chat.
It's excellent. They don't talk much about the movie. They get off and talk about Coen brothers as huge influences. And
Bill Hader did call this a masterpiece. So like he does
call it a masterpiece, which I can't, it's hard for me to dispute that. But one of the things he says that I think is so interesting, Bill Hader says about this movie, who he thinks very highly of it. He also says Guillermo del Toro thinks very highly of it. He says the movie just states the problem and doesn't provide a solution, doesn't provide the answer. And he said so many movies these days feel this responsibility to provide a solution or show some answer. And usually those things end up being sort of ham-fisted and just sort of ill-conceived. And he said, the job of great art historically has not been to present the solution, but to just show the problem. And I think that really struck me in my consideration of this movie because I didn't hear that until after. And I think that it resonated because like that's to me a lot of what this movie is doing. Like, and that's why people are so uncomfortable with it. They want to, I'm not saying this is you, but my sense is that many people want to sort of suss out where it lands. And I think so much of our culture right now is obsessed with like, well, whose team are you on? I don't know if I can like your thing yet because I need to know whose team you're on. Again, I'm not saying you're doing this, but and I think that art can be and maybe should be most of the time not about whose team it's on and more about holding a mirror up or having some insight into the human condition that's sort of beyond teams. And I know you're going to disagree with this, but that is one of the things I respect about the movie is that like it challenged me. There's things that I agreed with it and things that I didn't agree with it, but I sort of saw the baseline honesty that it was trying to deal with. And anyway, that's, again, you're going to disagree with that, but that's how I feel.
Well, let me just say, I don't necessarily disagree with the fundamental premise that art doesn't need to take a side, I think what you're trying to say is like art shouldn't need to take a side to be provocative and interesting. And I think I actually agree with that. I think the issue is you're saying, from what I can tell, and other people are saying, oh, this movie is such a good job because it's holding up a mirror to our society, right? Or it's doing a good job of asking the question or explaining what the current problems are. I disagree with that statement, right? I don't agree that this movie has a good diagnosis for what is wrong with us.
Yeah.
Because the movie, I think, if you watch the movie, the issue is there are grifters on all sides. That's kind of one of the messages of the movie. Everyone's a grifter in this film in some way. And to me,
that's not what I would have taken away from it, but I'll let you continue.
That's fair. Again, I'm trying to articulate what my interpretation is and whether I think, therefore, I like the movie or not. And one of the things I think the movie is saying is there are grifters on both sides. There are people that are willing to take advantage of social unrest on all sides. Whether they're Black Lives Matter protesters or
that is an element of the movie for sure.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. And I do not think that is one of society's biggest ills right now. And I think it's actually in many ways irresponsible to indicate that it is. So it's not like, the movie's not liberal enough. Ari Aster, by the way, still wears a mask according to his interviews. Like, it's not like he is super anti-mask or anything like that. But it's that I don't think the movie does a good job of doing what it's trying to do, which is diagnose the issue.
I think pointing out there are hypocrites on both sides. Like, if you just leave the statement there and don't dig a little deeper into like what I think like true insights, I think that's a little irresponsible. Jeff, I'd be interested to know like what insight do you feel that you got from this movie?
I mean, I know you have already stated that you thought that it was pat and redundant to point out, but my position to answer that specific question is that I think if it says there are grifters on both sides, the deeper level is why, and the why for me is the phone. The movie starts with the phone, it ends with the phone. It feels to me that the thesis statement, if there is one on this movie, is information is choking all of us.
Sure.
It is, and we're gagging on all of the information, and it creates these opportunities. Oh, sorry. It creates these opportunities.
Your phone says hello. You talking about me?
I know, right? I just
Your phone's my ears are bleeding.
It's like, don't you want to look at me? You haven't looked at me in half an hour. The notion that these grifters, such as they are depicted in this movie, exist at all is only because of the layer that exists of information and co-opting of information to as a weapon, right? And so that is why, to me, David, that your criticism of it's saying there's grifters on both sides, that is why I knee-jerk to say, well, that's not what I took from it. Like, yes, you're correct in saying that the movie is saying that, but I don't think that's the end of the sentence, right? The end of the end of the sentence is because of these things that we all do to ourselves. Like that, the only reason those things have any play in this movie is because, we're all just addicted to this thing. And to me, that I understand, Devindra, how you might react to that and being like, well, duh, obviously, like no insight there. But I just thought the dramatization of that on so many different levels, the different facets of it, right? It's not just Pedro Pascal and Joaquin Phoenix, right? It's every aspect of this society has a different way of having that completely bastardize their viewpoints, completely warp and manipulate how they interact with the world. Like, his mother-in-law, his wife, the kids on the street, like the shop owners, every single person is even this most side character, like the kid at the end, and we don't get into that, but every single thing that happens in this movie happens because of this thing that we all have brought into our lives. And I think setting it in this small town that's so remote and distant and should be removed from that. Like why is this? It shows you the deep seated cancer that is at the heart of our culture right now, and how it seeps into even people who shouldn't be susceptible to it, I think, in a lot of ways. Anyway, so that to me is what the movie is saying, and we can disagree about whether that's useful,
whether
or
that's useful
or
if that is the most serious issue facing us right now, right?
Right, but I do think I walked away from the movie feeling moved by that, and
I don't necessarily disagree that that's one of the things the movie is saying, and that it does a decent job of saying that. I think you're right about that, Jeff. But yeah, I think the layer of disagreement, right, is like, is that useful? Is that something that when you look back at everything that happened during COVID, is the information environment that warped people's thoughts and feelings on both sides the most serious issue. Or here's another argument you can make, right? Is that grifting forces who sought to benefit from widespread misinformation took advantage of things in ways that got people killed. Like that's another thing you could say is actually an even deeper issue than whether we are on Instagram too much, right? That's what I think. I'm just gonna put that out there. I just so I'm not making it hypothetical, right? But again, like it's we have different feelings, and I totally understand that this movie is making some points that people find useful. So
my big thing here is that there is more to that sentence. Like, yes, our phones are a sort of divided information ecosystem, like how we all live. It is a problem. Like, it's certainly a problem. It's probably like led to a lot of the issues we're seeing today, but also it feels like this is a 2.5 hour long movie. And I feel like there was so much more room to even like dive a little deeper into what's causing this, we'll get into spoilers eventually, but like, a part of the plot here is that Pedro Pascal's character is wants to allow for this AI data center to come in, which is right now a contentious issue. And I'm like, do you explain why that's why that's such a big problem?
That's a very ill-served component of the
kind
plot.
of
Personally,
thrown in there, but like controversy.
I will say, Jeff, that I do think one thing of praise for this film is I do think it does a good job of capturing exactly what the information environment was like back then in many ways. Like all the social apps, they look like accurate to how they would look and feel at the time. And that's actually really important for a movie like this. So anyway, look, I think we have a couple more thoughts on this film to share probably, but why don't we do it in spoilers? Spoilers for Eddington starting right now. The ending of the movie is pretty wild, and I think it offers some insight into like how extreme this movie is. Stephen David Miller, listener to the podcast, and he's written for decodingeverything.com. He actually wrote a comment on my Patreon page that I thought was really insightful about what this movie is trying to do. That it's actually more similar to Beau is Afraid than I think we might believe. Which is that it's essentially like Beau is Afraid was like, what if every neurotic nightmare you had was true? And I think Stephen David Miller writes here, this movie is like taking every intrusive thought you had when you were stuck at home behind a screen and blowing it up to ridiculous proportions. The degree to which it draws the left as annoying felt to me like the degree to which a neurotic progressive would question themselves. It was such a weird, self-conscious time. I think Ari Aster is smashing together left and right media extreme talking points, not because they're equivalent, but because anyone scrolling at home metabolized both of them at once, end quote. He was very positive on the movie, by the way. Just to be clear.
I think that's very true.
And that's really evident towards the end of the movie. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was saying, I love that phrase, metabolizing both of them.
Yeah.
I just think that's such a perfectly worded phrase for what I think the movie is trying to do.
Yeah. Stephen David Miller, one of the first people to see Eddington in the world at the Cannes Film Festival. But that's particularly evident towards the end when it becomes clear that the right-wing talking point of Antifa being a super organized, well-funded enterprise,
right? Like commando unit,
reality, right? Like these people are flying a private jet,
yeah,
and they come in and they have military training and weaponry, and they descend upon this small town to like sow discontent with the BLM protests, essentially.
And Joaquin Phoenix gets like every small town right wing sheriff's dream come true. Right? Like, I am the lead character in Call of Duty. Let's go! And I thought that was it was kind of amazing how crazy it went. And
like busting out of that room with the ammo store. So brilliant, by the way, of him falling into the thing, and then the camera panning back to see it's an ammo store is just like brilliant. And then he busting out with that full-on freaking like Terminator 2 Gatling gun. Just incredible.
I mean, I did appreciate on some level how batshit the ending is, and the movie does. Joaquin Phoenix's ending is very, very sad. Like it is
Yeah.
even though the movie is told primarily from Joaquin Phoenix's point of view, he doesn't end up being a triumphant hero in this
It's
story.
his worst nightmare.
Yeah.
His
basically.
wife is so much happier without him. You know,
Yeah.
like
She willingly
everything
wants
that
to have
could
a
go wrong.
child.
He
Yeah.
literally, his caretaker is his hated mother-in-law,
Right.
who literally is sleeping with the other dude in the same bed he's in.
Why
It's
are
like,
they in the same bed?
come on. It doesn't get
She-
much
big
worse
house.
than this guy's existence.
all
Yeah,
of
it's hell.
his
It's hell for him.
all of his goals and aspirations are gone. Like
Yeah.
one of the reasons he ran for office was to keep the server farm out of the county or the
Mhm.
town, and that fails at the
Yep.
end. And he's actually there at the ribbon
He's
cutting or whatever.
basically
the hell.
one of the reasons it succeeded.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um
It is
and,
not.
and there is something like real, like I appreciate
Mhm.
how fucking dark that is. Like it's just
Yes.
so
Yes.
upsettingly dark, right? And it's like
Yeah.
anytime a movie can go that far in any direction, I'm obviously gonna find it interesting and to some degree a fan, you know, of like just how far he's willing to take a film. So,
Mhm.
so anyway,
And I love the little vignette at the end too of the dopey kid who was, you know, all in on being, you know, a left-wing progressive, gets a little bit of fame on the right-wing side, and now he's got his arm around,
Yeah.
you know, whoever.
yeah,
It's I thought all that was great, and the way that they showed that with the screen sideways, I just thought was brilliant. You know, I don't
yeah,
know.
that was
I-
very
He-
cool. That was very
He's
cool.
a right-wing vigilante hero now because he
That's
shot
right.
the killer shot. So
He's
now they all love him.
fucking
so-
whatever that kid's name is.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Cal Rittenhouse, yeah.
It was a fun bit how we take like a 30-second tangent just into like, yep, big success for him. This is the world we live in.
Yep.
I think the last act of this movie is so strong because it does feel like Ari Aster is finally like unrestrained from trying to tell a seemingly realistic version
Right.
of what life was like in 2020. I'm like, maybe we should have done that earlier. Maybe we should have like, because especially
It's
coming off
very
of Beau's
grounded.
Afraid.
It's very grounded for the first 2/3, and then it
Yeah.
becomes completely ungrounded in the final third.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I kind of love about it is that everything up until the bullet goes through Pedro Pascal,
Mm-hmm.
like that bullet ripping through his body, it just catapults this movie into this completely other place.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that coming at all. I found just on a pure thrill ride level, that was so much fun. And now we're in this crazy, you know, Coen Brothers-esque
Mm-hmm.
or Prestige TV-esque, like, is he going to get away with it? What's his, what the hell is what's his plan? And then you see, like I mentioned, you know, a few minutes ago, how so much of what you had seen up to that was like setups for this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the picture of the kid kissing the girl and the other guys kissing the girl and the dude like practicing his riflery and all that stuff, which just felt like flavor in the world and other
Mhm.
fucked up things. Is like, oh no, these are very intricately placed dominoes that are leading to an outcome that is inevitable and that
Yeah.
he knew about. You know, him picking up that watch as he was doing the murder.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't think much of it. And then of course that was all pre-planned, premeditated. I just thought, just on a pure, like, if you can, you know, extract the difficulty of the setting and the time period from it, just on a pure, like, how do you construct a effective thriller for that third act? I think it's masterful.
Jeff, I actually really enjoyed the final third a lot more than the first 2/3, right? And
Mhm.
because it's so out there and zany and wild, I will say Joaquin Phoenix kind of gets a personality transplant in the last third of the movie, in my opinion. Like, he is not shown as being competent at all in any regard in the first 2/3
He
of
does
the movie.
mention to the like one of his cop subordinates, like, hey, you got to beat my shot.
Right.
So like
okay,
telling
that's
us
fair.
like,
Yeah, he
okay,
has
he was a
the-
better shot.
He
Yeah.
has the
that's right.
shot hanging in his office where he did
Yeah.
the headshot. Remember that?
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
he's a good shot, but then like
He's a good shot.
he's like planning like 3 steps ahead of how to like frame this guy and like
Right.
and
I
do all
don't
this
think
stuff,
it's that,
which
it's
are
that
skill.
complicated.
It's not that complicated. Like,
All right,
I
all
took
right.
that thing. I'm
Here's
like,
what
that
I've
dude's
just learned.
screwed.
I don't
Yeah.
want to have you guys murder me. That's kind of what I've just
Well,
learned. Is
Oh, I've been thinking about it for years.
Because
Those are
apparently you
plans,
guys would be so
Devindra.
good at framing someone else.
No, but I think
yeah.
what I will say in response is that I think he's still shown to be a pretty incompetent dude.
Yes.
It's like he
Yes.
does some things that in retrospect show that he had premeditated it, but none of them are particularly good. And
Yeah.
when the when the Native American dude comes in, he's just completely flummoxed and flustered and like,
yeah, that's fair.
Get out of here! You just don't be in here.
Yeah, it's not part of the plan. You're right. Yeah, I get it.
That guy's already
I feel
clocked
like
everything.
He's still a complete putz.
Yeah.
To go back to some of the earlier points, Jeff, I think the only other thing is, I think it's maybe I'll change my opinion on this movie as time goes on. I doubt it, but maybe I'll change my opinion as time goes on. I think it's really raw. Like,
yes,
it's raw right now, and I actually don't think it's a good idea to make a movie about something that just happened, because I think we first of all, on one level, I think it's still happening, and what I mean by that is, the battle over information about Americans' health or the world's health and how we deal with our health and none of that is even approached in this film, right? Like the issues, the misinformation issues that happened during COVID have, in my opinion, gotten worse as time has gone on, and none of that is even touched. Like, they didn't even come close to it in my opinion in this film, and so the story is not over yet, right? I think we're maybe a third of the way through whatever the story this era is going to be. And so you're making a movie that's like, I think, in my opinion, will age very poorly. That's my
Let me just say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Watergate happens in 1972. Nixon resigns in 1974.
Yeah.
All the President's Men comes out in 1976.
All right.
Sure.
That's fair.
Sure.
That's fair.
But, that was a time when consequences existed, Jeff.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously the details are different. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's, I had the same thought as I was sitting there, Dave, of it's wild to me that every single person that will watch this movie as it comes out, lived
through it.
Yeah.
And that is such an uncommon occurrence when it's a movie that's about sort of big moments in history. I don't know if that, usually we have more of a perspective on it. And so, yes, I do think, like I said, it's Ari Aster sort of walking off a cliff in a lot of ways, walking into the fray.
It's also not that uncommon to try to reflect on history as it's happening, because history is happening faster. Like, things are happening faster. Think of how long was it for Zero Dark 30 after the death of Osama bin Laden, right? Where we were literally reckoning with that and then turned it into a dramatic film. That's happened over and over again. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to revisit it.
But I think a lot of it has aged poorly. Like, look at all the 9/11 movies that got made, right? Like, very few people talk about those, right? And it's because
Hurt Locker still hits. I think there of Zero Dark 30, there's still some interesting elements of look at this thing that was made in that era, even if not everything about that movie is fully effective or, I don't know, maybe even accurate now. There is a thing you gain.
There is some value from getting a snapshot of a perspective on this topic. I don't deny that.
My thing is, I don't think this is a particularly interesting perspective is the thing. It feels like the most facetious takeaway from the Black Lives Matter protests. It feels like basically, I don't think any of those characters, especially the characters behind those protests, felt like they were genuine. It always felt like they were I don't know, weirdly heightened in some way that didn't feel like something of the time. To me, it just feels like we're revisiting things that already existed, and that's why it ultimately didn't work for me. And I wish we had gotten more of the crazy zaniness of Beau's Afraid. Beau's Afraid, that movie, there was never a breath where that movie wasn't a crazy heightened anxiety dream, and maybe I was expecting a little more from him.
Along those lines.
It's a shame.
Right.
Yeah, along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the way that those characters were treated was, upsetting to me. And I understand that all the characters in the movie got treated that way. But, again, Joaquin Phoenix is the only character who we're really meant to relate to, in my opinion. And, yeah, it bothered me. Anyway. Yeah,
I
go
can
ahead,
understand that. There's, as I said, I was deeply uncomfortable with a lot of this movie. I was even more deeply uncomfortable when I'm sitting in, Colorado and people are cackling at stuff that I didn't find funny. It's like, oh,
right.
But that's kind of what I respected about this movie, because I do think Obviously, you guys can disagree, but I do think that while each side, such as they are, is subverted in a certain way, is undermined in a certain way, also each side is allowed to sort of make good points in this movie. Like each side, you know, it's hard to argue with some of the things that are said on each side. And I think that is to the movie's credit that it's not a polemic, right? This is a movie that is, I think, what I appreciate about it, and again, it's going to land on different people in different ways, but what I appreciate about it is that it really does seem to be trying to express the full nature of what was happening in 2020 as perceived by Ari Aster, right?
As perceived by Ari
That's
Aster,
true.
I think is the main 100%
thing. 100% agree with that part of what you just said.
And I know you guys have qualms with his perspective, but I found it fascinating. Like certain things I would say, like, I would never put that in a movie. I would never have made that observation, but it's fascinating to me that he does, and that he does makes me reconsider my own perspective on it. And even if I come out still thinking the same way, I just appreciate an artist having the pure chutzpah to present it that way.
I don't like Joaquin Phoenix's character. It's not unusual for us to get despicable main characters, right? Where they're the only ones with interiority in anything. But to me, it feels like kind of a wasted opportunity. Michael, the one black cop in his, his tiny little office, he's referenced a lot. The plot kind of uses the fact that he is a black cop against him, and people comment on it, but would have liked some interiority there, some thought about like what was happening. I don't think this movie responds to the George Floyd assassination in any way, and it feels really cheap how they use that more as a plot point. Maybe I'm sure that's how it felt to people. It was something that happened far off. Maybe you saw some protests in your town. Doesn't really have much to do with me personally, I guess. But that felt like a real sea change for us as a country. And it feels like, a thing that could have been interesting to explore, especially if you have a black cop who was there for a very specific reason. The same thing with the like Native American, the other cop from their side, like shown to be a good cop, like shown to be a good investigator. But because this is an Ari Aster movie, he gets a shitty death. Like that's his reward for being a good cop ultimately. So part of it is just that Ari Aster works in this cynical mode that I find to be kind of abhorrent at times. And also Ari Aster is just one white dude who lived through 2020 like all of us. So this is a perspective we're getting, unfortunately.
Yeah, I also just don't agree with Jeff. I don't agree with you saying that each side is allowed to like present its view in a way that's sympathizable or understandable.
I didn't say that. I didn't say they're allowed to present their view. I said each side makes good points at various times. I think
it could have fooled me based on the movie. Like I don't think the movie. I don't think that's the movie's perspective. Or at least I don't think the movie renders their points as understandable or good.
Even a simple thing like the reason Joaquin Phoenix's character doesn't want to wear a mask, right? Like we see he has asthma. He's taking the inhaler. He's taking a pump. He says, "I can't breathe under a mask." Buddy, mask technology evolved pretty quickly to make it not that tough to wear, even if you suffer from asthma. And there was never any investigation of like, he thinks he is helping the people who are being shunned because they also are not wearing masks, and that puts him on the side of the people. To him, he is a savior of the people, but would have left more of the perspective like, okay, so all this stuff about the medicine, like all this stuff about like this is an airborne pathogen and wearing masks can actually prevent it. He is just like not dealing with it because COVID isn't there yet. It's not a problem that he has to think about or deal with. Would have loved like thinking a bit more about that. Pedro Pascal's character.
To be fair, he does get COVID, and that is one of the things. That is one of the ultimate thing. And again, Ari Aster wears a mask. Like Ari Aster,
he goes around spreading it everywhere. By the way,
Ari
like
Aster
he and the homeless
believes
guy.
in the efficacy of masks, right? Like the director of the movie believes in it.
I'm not saying the movie is anti-mask or anything. I'm just saying, would have loved more about okay.
No, but I agree with you. I ultimately agree that the movie doesn't present wearing a mask as a reasonable perspective in general, or at the very least, presents mask mandates as something that is super easily weaponized to oppress people, right? Which I just don't agree with. Like, I don't believe that's true. So Anyway, at the end of the day, go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to mention a couple more scenes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Devindra, you were talking about the protest and stuff, and the George Floyd part. That sequence with the kids on the street protesting and him trying to get to his campaign rally thing where he's going to spill the beans about this rape. Like, what a masterfully constructed piece of tension. Problematic, I'm sure, for many viewers for all sorts of reasons, but like just as on a cinematic level of, you have this guy in this situation where he's dealing with his personal stuff that he wants to deal with, and that woman comes on the rapping on the window like, you're just sitting in there while this is happening? They smash a window, the shopkeepers are upset, the kids are upset, and all he wants to do is like get into his nice outfit and walk down the street into the diner where he can make a speech. Like, I just thought an amazing sequence, an amazing bit of tension, and all these things kind of colliding all at once in this chaos. I mean, I love scenes like that. I love movies where 400 things are happening all at once, and we as the viewers are just holding our breath, trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
He does organize chaos very well.
Yeah. Anything else, Jeff, before we wrap up?
No, I
didn't mean to sound flip.
No, that's okay.
That was good articulation.
I suspected. I appreciate that this conversation has been positive.
Yes,
and
hopefully as constructive as things can be, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
But I do. The whole spectrum of opinion is on this podcast, right? Like, Devindra thought it was mad. Jeff loved it. I thought it was morally reprehensible. And so it's like
hot, cold, and tepid, all right there.
There you go. There you go.
All right, folks. I think that'll bring us to the end of this week's episode of the podcast. But anyway, at the end of the day, despite everything I have said about how this movie is bad, it is impressive that Ari Aster made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.